All right. Welcome everyone. Welcome to week 11. And on this session, we are going to um, use what we've learned from the class lessons, which covers flex layouts, gradients, shadows, multiple columns, and grid. But for the time we have, we are not going to um, make any illustrations for grid layouts, but I'm going to use an image which I already uploaded on the WhatsApp group. I'm going to use the image to learn the different grid layouts that are there. So for this lesson, I am going to start with the flex layouts, and we are going to see how the flex layouts can be used to position items on our web page. Now, the flex layout is a flexible box, also known as flexible box. It provides more efficient way to lay out items. It also makes it possible for us to align and distribute space among items in a container, which we usually refer to as the flex box. And um, this is efficient because whenever we have maybe a page that requires the size to be adjusted, the flexbox is also one of the good way of making sure that the content we have inside the flexbox or on the page does not size in a different way. Maybe let's say if there's no size outside the screen, we have to make sure while making sure that the content inside the page does not display outside the screen or does not display in a wrong order. So the flex layout is one of the layouts that helps us to enable that the contents are displayed properly. They resize, they adjust according to the screen size. Now, it might not be one of the best layouts since the grid view layout still remains one of the most recommended. But the flex layout also has its advantages, and I also learned that it's also one of the easiest as well. But it has some also little disadvantage as well. But we're going to look at how to make use of the flex layouts on this exercise. All right, now I would start with creating a flex content. So first we want to have a container which we're going to apply the flex properties to. So I'm going to have a container. But first I want to have a heading that is going to tell what we are doing. And I'm going to give this heading the name flex layouts. And now we can have our container, and we can create a container using the div. And in the div, I'm going to have a class called container, which we're going to start when we apply our flex properties. Now, I want to have flex items in this container, and I'm going to use a div as well to hold these items. And I also want to use classes to make sure that these items are positioned using the flex property. So I'm going to create a class called item. also want to have another class called item1. Since this is going to be the first item, and I'm going to name this item1. So I'm going to have another item. Let's have 3 items inside our container. I'm going to name this item3. And the second one, item2. Alright, now we have 3 items in this container. Now we can apply the flex properties for our layout. So I'm going to use an embedded staff sheet so we can see everything on one page. Now for our flex layout, the flex property we use to make sure that the container or our container is going to have the items inside going to be positioned using the flex layout. We use the flex property, but first I'm going to call my class I have created for the container. And in my container, I am going to use the flex property. So the display property, is flex. And I also want now before I do this, I want us to see how these items are displayed on the page. I'm going to refresh my page. Now we have the heading displayed and the items displayed on the block form. Now we're going to start applying the flex properties to the items. Now the container, which is our flex box, I am going to use the display property, and the value will be flex. Now this alone is going to enable the items to be positioned in a flexible way as we specify with the property inside the flex box. So you can see the positions are changed already, and I have positions are already displayed in an inline. Now we are going to position the items further with more flex properties, and the next one we are going to have here is the flex wrap. The flex wrap would make sure, and we use the value wrap. Now there are other values. We have no wrap, we have wrap reverse, so I'm going to use wrap. This would make sure that whenever we adjust the screen size, the items would not overflow from the container itself. It's going to adjust its size, or it's going to go down instead of displaying on an inline display like this. Now next, we want to make sure that the contents have equal spaces around them. So we use the justify property, the justify content property, and for this I want them to have space around. Now this might not display properly now until we add some borders and maybe color backgrounds to the items, but you can see what each property gives to the items in the flex container. And next, we want to have the items to be displayed horizontally centered. Now, this is already horizontally centered, sorry. I want it to be displayed vertically centered, and we use the align items, and I use the value center. And there are other values that you can explore, but for this exercise, I want to create my items like this. Now, if I refresh this, there isn't much difference yet, but we're going to apply more properties to make sure that everything displays the way we want. Now, next, I want to have margin, and I want the top and bottom to have a space of 20 px. And since this container is going to be an adjustable container, I am going to use auto for the width, but I want a little space at the top and bottom. I'm going to save this and refresh my page. Okay, so the 20px isn't displaying yet, so I have to add some extra properties to the items before we can see that. And next, I want to have the width of the container to be 80%. So I want the width of the container to take 80% of the screen. And I also want a border around the items, and the border width should be 2px, and I want the border type to be solid, and it has a text mark color. Let's save this, and we have the border. Now I also correction, the margin I have here is for the container, not the items, so it's not going to factor inside the container. Then I also want a padding of 10px. So I have applied the general side padding of 10px. Now I want to apply more flex styles to the item. So this is going to be the class for the general item. Now for all the items, I want them to have an equal width now of 100px. And the height of 100px as well. And I want them to have a margin of 10px. And now, to make them stand out, I want them to have a background color of gray. And then I also want a border. It's a width of 1px. And I want the border to be solid, so it's visible and still the color. Now we're also going to look at how to apply box shadows to our properties. to this item, sorry. So I want to show you how to do that. So, but first, I'm going to save this and let's see how the general items displays. Now, I've successfully applied the basic properties to make sure that items are displayed properly inside the container. Now, our borders and colors are to make sure that these items are going to be styled or positioned using the flex layout properties. But first, I want to apply a box shadow to this these items, and we do that using the box shadow property. And in the box shadow property, we have the first value as the vertical shadow. And I'm going to use 2px for that. And for the horizontal shadow, I'm also going to use 2px. And I want the blur to be 5px. And I'm going to add a color to it. Okay, so now we have a very good drop shadow, but this is the drop shadow that we use for elements, especially containers. I'm also going to show how we do that using the text shadow for text. Alright, now let's start with the individual items, and for that we're going to use the class. And for the first class we have here is the item 1. Create the classes for all of them. For item 2, and next for item 3. Now, the flex property we are going to use first. We want to look at how to make use of the flex row, and the flex row we use the flex row property with the name flex row, and we specify the value. Now, what this flex row does is it's going to make sure that when we adjust the screen size, it's going to determine how much the item itself is going to take the spaces that are available while the screen is being reduced or increased. Now, if we reduce the screen now, as we have on the page, it adjusts equally. It has no difference in the adjustments. So now we want to apply the flex row to see how the items are going to adjust according to the size that are available, the spaces that are available on the container. So I'm going to use, for the item 1, I'm going to use a flex row of 2, value of 2. And for item 2, I'm going to use a flex shrink. Now, the flex shrink is just the reverse of the flex group. So if we adjust the screen, the items inside the container it's going to determine how the items inside the container are shrinked to adjust to the size that are available or the size that isn't available, since it's going to shrink. So it's going to take a different size. Once the screen is reduced, it's going to adjust its size, and when it increases, it's going to stay at the original size it's really supposed to be. Now, for the item 3, I'm going to use the flex basis. Now this flex base, okay, I should specify for this, I'm going to use 2 as well. And for the flex base is just the original size that it's going to maintain. So it's going to take not really the original, it just depends on the value we give. It's going to maintain the size of that value that we give when the screen is reduced or increased, so it doesn't change. So I'm going to use a size of 120 px. So we're going to see how these items display now. I'm going to refresh the page. Now you see, before adjusting the screen size, you can see that the flex grow is already affecting the item 1, which means that by using the value of 2, it's going to be times 2 of the other items. That space is going to increase times 2 no matter how the screen size is adjusted. So you can see here, but also we have included the flex shrink on item 2. So the flex shrink is for when we reduce the screen, it's going to adjust itself to make sure that there's enough space for the other contents. So this is effective mostly for when we're creating a web page and we have items that maybe we have more content on the item 1, we have very few items on the content 2, and then maybe we have a balanced item on the content on item 3. So this is one good example of a way you can use to adjust the content or elements we have on the web page. So you see the item 3 stays the same because the flex base has made sure that it stays with the width of 120px, and the item 2 shrinks as the page is adjusted, reduces to create more space for others, and the flex grow is making sure that the item 1 is always taking enough space that are available, but at the rate of this value of 2. So if I reduce the value to 1, we're going to see that it's also going to adjust, but it's still going to make sure that it takes the space that are available, but at the value of 1. So it's currently taking more sizes on the page, more space on the page, sorry. So I'm going to also show you another way we can do this. So I'm going to specify all these proxies using the flex proxy. Now for the item 1, I want the flex proxy, and this is going to be for the shorthand. So I had 2, the flex grow was 2. Now I want to make sure that the shrink is 1, so it doesn't shrink too much, because like I said, if we have more content on the item 1, we want to make sure that it displays all the contents. It has enough space for all the contents. So I'm going to use a shrink of 1, and then the base should always be 100px until it's the screen is adjusted. And then I'm also going to do this for item 2. Now for item 2, I want the row to be 1, and I also want the shrink like it was to remain 2, and I want the base to be 150 px. For item 3, I want the row to be 3, I want the shrink to be 1, and the base to be 120 px. I'm going to save this so see how they display now. Now, each property that we have added to the items now are taking effect. So for item 1, we record that the row was 2. Now we have a merged row on item 3. So this is now a another example. If we have more content on item 3 and we want to adjust the items according to the content we have. So let's say we have more content on item 3 and the row now is 3. It doesn't shrink below 1, and it doesn't shrink too much because we want it to have enough space for the content inside, and the base is 120. So if I extend the screen, you can see how it adjusts itself. So the row is more, this one has 3, this one has 2, and this one has 1. So it's obvious which one is taking more space according to the row. And when we shrink, you can also see that the one with the highest shrink, which is 2, is going to shrink more, and also the one with the highest base remains the same once it shrinks to that level, so it doesn't go below, but the others goes below 150 because they have the base as 100 and 120, which is less than 150. So this is one creative way we can use to adjust or position items or elements in the flexbox on our web page. And we can also use the order. The order just tells us where the items are going to display. So we use the order property, and here, which is item 1, I want it to display last as item 3 as the third item, and then I want item 2 to display where it is. And I want the third item to display as the first one. So I'm going to specify the order here too as well. And I want this to remain. So it's now adjusted according to the order which I have specified inside the item, the flex items itself. So we now have it reversed. Also, now because of time, we're going to go straight to how we can apply gradient colors. Let's look at gradient colors. And gradients in CSS is just a better way of giving us more color options, right? Because it has more color varieties, and we can combine several colors to give us more beautiful look. So let's say we don't want to use just the basic colors, which are the common colors we already know, and we want to have something different, we want to have something unique. So gradients is one way we can use to design web pages. Now for gradients, I'm going to create more classes here, and I'm going to name this gradients. Name this gradient 1. looking at different type of gradients. I'm going to name this gradients 2. And gradients 3. Then we can start applying the color gradients to the items. Save this. Now the first gradient type we're going to look at here. I'm not going to spend too much time on the gradients since we covered a lot of it on the class lesson, but I'm just going to do this so we can see different ways to use this. So the first one here is going to be for gradients, the class gradients 1, and this will be for our linear gradients. So to apply our linear gradients to this item, I'm going to use the background, and in the background I want to specify that I am using the linear gradients. For linear gradients, by default, it usually goes from top to bottom, but we can specify how we want the flow, the transition to go. So for this, I want to use so if you recall from the class lesson, we looked at different ways we can change the direction flow of the color gradient transitions. So for this, I want to use degree, so I'm going to say 45 degree, and I'm going to specify the colors that I want for this gradient. I'm going to be using hexadecimal colors since they give us more options as well. So this color attributes the color type makes us have more options and more unique colors on our web page. Now with comma separated, I'm going to also specify another color. And I close. So this is just a short way of doing it, or a different way as well, how to apply gradients. So let's see how this gradient or linear gradient color looks on our item. So for item 1, which we call the class, we have the linear gradients displaying at an angle of 45 degrees. So it's not from the top, not top to bottom, nor left to right, but from the angle 45 degrees. Alright, now next we are going to look at another type of gradients. And this will be for gradient 2. And we also use the background property. So the background property is one of the property you can easily use to have any shorthand style or property applied, unless you want to use the background in color and background image. So, but here I'm just using the background property and specify all in one. So for this, we want to use a radial gradient. of brackets. Since this is radial, I'm going to specify the type. I want the type to be circle. So I want to create something like a pie chart, and the color Alright, now I'm going to save this so we can see how this displays. So you can see the circle transition and the colors that I have specified inside the circle. Alright, now next we want to look at, now to make this more like a pie chart, I'm going to use the border radius property. Okay, so check my code. This isn't supposed to display. Oh, okay. Alright, writing it outside the block of code. So for our border radius, the value should be 50% to make sure that we have a perfect pie chart. So you can adjust your colors. You can choose more solid colors to make sure that maybe if you want the pie chart to have solid colors to differentiate different areas on your pie chart. But this is just one creative way of doing it. So for the last gradient, we're going to use a conic gradient, and I'm going to use the background property. Now for this I want it to have a transition from 45 degree at 50%. So I'm just repeating most of the things we've done already on the class lesson, just to make sure that I have the different type of gradients on my flexbox. Now, it might not make much sense, but This is just to show you the different ways we can create different type of gradients and the syntax mostly we use. So you can also explore the colors and the different type of ways we can do this. That would make a lot of sense to your page. So if you have your own ideas, you already just have to know how to do it and then explore different ways to do it. Alright, now this is for color gradients and for flex box and flex content and flex items. So we can see how this is displaying. Now before we end this session, I just want to create another container that we can use to illustrate how to um, divide text into columns. So for this exercise, I am going to create a news section. So I'm going to use this section to illustrate how to create multiple lines of text. Alright, now I'm going to create another heading. I'm going to have this in a separate container, and I'll call this news container. And to have a heading called breaking news. I'm going to be using a class to style this. So for those in the internship program, I believe this should be useful to you so you can see how to use classes on elements to apply specific styles to that particular element, so you don't have any conflicting styles when you apply to the elements, since most of the time you're going to be working collaboratively. Now for this H2, I'm going to use news heading as my class. Let's add more heading. Let's add more heading to this news. So this will be breaking news. CSS. Now it's open. Columns. Now let's have our contents. I want to put this text in a container, and I want to call this container my text container. Now this is where I'm going to have my text body. Now I want to use the p tag. Now I need a lot of text context in this paragraph, so I'm going to use the default text here. What's the name? Lauren, yes, some. And I want to have this duplicated on the page. To have lots of this. I'm going to have another paragraph. Have more of this on the page. And another paragraph. So we can have lots of text on the page. Should be enough. Now this is going to be for the text. This is the text we'll be styling into multiple columns. So I'm going to save this. Oh, okay. Ivan is asking what's the difference between the three types of grid. The display looks here. By the display, you can easily tell that one has a linear flow, but we decide the flow by the value, and therefore this called the radial gradient. It's the flow is usually it's more like a round kind of flow, and like an all-round flow. It doesn't have, but you usually decide the flow inside as the value. But you can see that when we are using them, you can't use the same way of deciding the values, deciding the flow. So they have that different way of flows, and we also have this cosmic gradient which displays differently. So the thing is, you want to use the gradients according to the flow you want. So for the linear, by default it's usually top to bottom, and here I decided to have it, that's for the linear, I decided to have it at 90 degree. And for the radial, I decided to use the circle to make sure that the flow is in a circle flow, and it just blends, but the colors are mostly going to be radial. That's the like the round flow. Then the cognitive gradient also has more flexibility, that you can adjust the flow. So it all depends on the type of flow you want to display, the type of color flow you want to display on your page or on the elements which you're applying the colors to. Now for the multiple columns, I want to, okay, you're welcome. Alright, I want to style the text. So we have the text already. As you can see, it's not looking proper. So we want to make sure that these texts are in multiple columns. Now to do this, we are going to use the classes we've created to style each of the sections or the containers we have created for them. Now the first one here, but first I want to have a general text fonts for all the text, and I'm going to apply this to the body. So I want the font family, and I'm not going to specify any of this. I'm going to use car. And I want all the text to have a background, the whole body, sorry, to have a background color, a gray background color. So this is F, 0, F. And next I want to style all the P elements, all the P tags, and I want them to have a margin of 0 top, 0 bottom, 10 px by the side. And I also want a line height of 1.6. save this, and we can see that the properties we've applied to the body and the p tag, p element has already taken effect. Now let's style the classes that we have created, and the first one will be the news container. I want the width to be 80%, just like the container we have at the top. And I also want a margin. So this is usually depending on your choice or style of the kind of page you're creating. So I'm trying to create something that is more of a news page. And the margin of the width to be also. Also want a background color. And flat. And let's give it a border radius. 10 px, not too cold. And padding to make sure the text are arranged properly. So padding of 20 px, and I want a box shadow as well. I'm going to use an RGB color. This should be 0. I'm going to save this. Let's look at how the text container is already looking. So this is already looking good, but we have to make sure that it goes better. So the next is the news heading. And the news heading is for the H on, yeah, the H2. So we want to apply the heading property. We want the font family. And to use area. Area black. From sans serif. And I want the font size to be 36 px. And the color as well should be gray. Let's now add the text shadow to the heading. I'm trying to make this as fast as possible because of time. So this is the shadows. This is for the vertical shadow, the horizontal shadow, and the below. This is going to be 10 px. Okay, now I'm going to use something more pronounced. 2 px for the vertical, and 2 px for the horizontal, and 4 px for the below. This should be 0. This should be 3.0.3. I'm going to save this and hope I'm doing something right. Alright, now we have the text shadow on the heading and the font size is increased. Now let's apply the multiple column property to our text container. So the class is text container. And now this is where we apply the columns. We make the text in columns, and we use the column property. And in the column property, we are going to specify how many columns that we want for the text. Now I want the text to have 3 columns, and I'm going to specify the width of the column. I want it to be 150 px. So this is just the shorthand to specify the number of columns and the width of the columns. And I also want to have a column gap. So I'm going to save this so you see how it's displayed first. Now it's now in 3 columns. So I want to have column gap of 20 px. So we can have a gap between the columns. Now it's well spaced. And next I want to have a row. So to have the row, we use the column row. And for the column row, I'll be using the shorthand. I want the border to be 2 px, and I want it to be solid, and ash color. And save this. Now we're going to have the row between the columns. Now this is how we can create. I'm going to reduce this text. Save this. Now, well, this is how we can make our text in multiple columns. So you can specify the amount of columns you want for the text. If you increase to 4, it's going to be 4. If you reduce it to 2, then we're going to have 4 columns of text. So I'm going to end the class lesson here. So for the grid, if you want to understand the grid, I have shared an image so that illustrates how the grid template works on the web page. So you can study the image and see the difference. So for the image, it was categorized as the grid container and the grid items. So you see the different properties that you can use to position items in the grid container, and then you also see the property that you applied directly to the grid items to position them to as well. So this is where we're going to end the class. So if you have any question, you can ask now. All right, so if there are no questions, always remember that if you have any challenge, you can reach out to me on the WhatsApp group for a 101. All right, so I'm going to see you next week, and I wish you success in your assignments, and have a lovely weekend ahead.